underneath all of this? If I stop being strong, will anyone still want me? If I admit that I'm tired, will they leave? If I ask for help, will they see me as weak? If I stop performing, will I still matter? So you keep going. Not because you want to, because stopping feels more dangerous than burning out. I learned this when I was 6 years old. My mom, she was diagnosed with systemic scleroderma. I watched her body literally attack itself from the inside out for 13 years. Somewhere in those years, I learned that asking for help made things harder. That crying made people uncomfortable. That being strong made people feel safe. So that's who I became. I became the kid who didn't cry. The teenager who had it all figured out. The 17-year-old mother who kept going. The adult who never needed rescuing. It worked. People trusted me. People leaned on me. People told me I was strong. I wore that like a badge of armor. A badge of honor. I did, like armor. Until one day I realized I wasn't strong. I was just alone. I had no idea how to stop. Because stopping meant that I was risking the one thing I couldn't afford to lose. Being needed. Here's what happens when you spend years being the reliable one. You stop knowing who you are without it. Your entire identity gets wrapped up around being the person who shows up, the person who doesn't need help, the person who makes things okay. And after a while, you don't even know what you want anymore. Because wanting things, needing things, asking for things, that's not who you are. Someone asks, what do you need? Your brain, your mind, it all goes blank all at once. Not because you don't have needs, but because you spent so long not asking that you've lost access to the part of you that knows. You made yourself so low maintenance that you have disappeared. This guy I worked with, he told me a story. I've been the provider my whole life. My worth is tied to what I produce, what I fix, what I solve. Last year he got sick. I mean, really sick. He couldn't work. He couldn't fix anything. I remember him telling me while he's lying in the bed, I can't do anything for anyone. Who even am I? That broke my heart. Because he wasn't asking philosophically. He genuinely didn't know. His value, his identity, his entire sense of self was built on usefulness. And without it, he felt like nothing. That's what happens when you build yourself around what you do instead of who you are. You forget that you matter, even when you're not producing. You forget you're lovable, even when you're not performing. You forget you're allowed to just exist. That's not weakness. That's what happens when survival becomes your identity. Okay, let's slow it down a bit. When's the last time you rested and actually felt good. Not rest where you collapse because your body forced you to do it. Not rest where you scroll on your cell because you're too tired to do anything else. But real rest where you stopped and it felt peaceful instead of guilty. If you can't remember, you're not alone. Because for people like us, rest doesn't feel relieving. It feels wrong. It feels selfish. It feels lazy. It feels like you're letting people down. You know why? Because rest breaks the contract. The unspoken contract that says your worth is tied to your productivity. As long as you're moving, you're valuable. As long as you're solving, you're needed. As long as you're giving and giving and giving, you're good. But the second you stop, fear creeps in. What if they don't need me anymore? What if I lose my place? What if I'm only valuable when I'm useful? So you keep going, right? Not because you're energized, because stopping feels like disappearing. Okay, here's what I need you to understand. You are not your productivity. You are not your usefulness. You are not the sum of what you do for other people. You are a whole person. You are a whole person with needs and limits and a nervous system that is begging you to stop proving your worth. The reason rest feels wrong isn't because you're lazy. It's not. It has nothing to do with that. It's because you were taught that your value is conditional. That love is something you earn. That mattering is something you have to work for. As long as you believe that, you will never feel safe enough to stop. But that belief isn't the truth. It's just a story you learn to survive. Stories can be rewritten. Look, I was 6, I was 17, I was drowning. I learned that being strong was the only way to stay safe. That wasn't a choice. That was survival. It worked. For a long time, it did. It worked. But I'm not drowning anymore. I'm not that little kid anymore, trying to hold everything together while my mom was dying. I'm not her. I'm not the teenage mother trying to raise babies and siblings at the same time. I'm not her anymore. I'm not in that situation anymore. I'm safe now, which means I stop, and so can you. There's an exercise that goes with this called the origin map. It's not about blaming the past. It's not about reliving anything that you're not ready to touch. And it's definitely not about making excuses. We don't do that. It's about understanding. When you're ready, it will help you trace where this pattern started. Why it once made sense. Because this didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't just plop in your lap. It came from a version of you that was trying to stay safe. Some people work through it right away. Some people need time before they go there. Both are okay. What matters is this. When you understand why you learned to be this way, it stops feeling like a personal failure and starts feeling like something that you can change. Once you stop blaming yourself, you can really dig in and start redirecting the strength you've been using for survival toward building something new. That's what we're doing in the next 3 modules. Now that you understand why you do this, we need to look at what it's costing you. Not to make you feel worse. That's not the case. But because once you see the cost clearly, you'll finally have a reason strong enough to change. Understanding is the first step. Seeing the real cost is the second. Then we build the framework that lets you live differently. Here's what I want you to take with you. You didn't choose this pattern to hurt yourself. You chose it to survive. It worked. For a long time, it worked. But survival mode isn't supposed to be permanent. The version of you that learned to be strong for everyone else was doing the best that it could do in that moment. But you're not that person anymore. You're not in that situation anymore. You don't have to keep performing to prove you're valuable and worth keeping. You already are all of that. You're worth keeping. Even when you're tired, even when you need help, even when you stop, I want you to know that you still matter. But understanding why you do this isn't enough. Next, we need to see what it's actually costing you. Because once you see the costs clearly, you'll finally have a reason strong enough to change. Let's keep going. See you there.